What is going on, YouTube? I am super excited today because I'm bringing you guys my very first educational commentary slash Fortnite tutorial. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight into it. Now, I'm really not going to sugarcoat anything, guys. I'm just going to go ahead and be straight out honest. This game is, in my opinion, a very hard game to master because there's so many different situations that you have to basically take under control, and there's a lot of different aspects of the game that you have to learn. And then on top of that, the game is always constantly being updated, so things aren't always staying the same, so you have to be very adaptable. So with that being said, I'm basically going to break it down into two areas that you should really focus on. Now, the first area is pretty self-explanatory. It just comes down to overall skill. And then the second category that I'm going to be taking a look at is your mental aspect of the game and how much confidence you're playing with and how sure you are of your own skills. And I bring up the mentality part of the game because a lot of times when you do significant damage to a player, you'll see that they'll really panic, and then when someone panics, they don't know what to do, they're not calm, they're not poised, and they're not taking control of the situation and dictating the fight. And when you panic, you're gonna lose a lot of gunfights. And just one last very basic general tip that I can give you guys that will really help you become a more consistent, better player is always try and dictate the fight. You always want to have the advantage over your opponent, and you always want them to move the way you want them to move so you can anticipate what your opponent is going to do. Once you master the ability to anticipate what your opponent is going to do and then be able to counter that opponent accordingly, you are going to be an absolute beast. Alright, so let's go ahead and just analyze some gameplay clips here. So the first situation that we get into, it's going to be a 1v1v1. And every time you're in a combat scenario, you always want high ground. When you have high ground, you have a great chance, the best chance possible to dictate the fight, anticipate what your opponent is going to do, and counter them. So here you see that I'm retaking high ground over one of my opponents by using stairs, and then I put walls in front of the stairs to add extra support and protection. I try to take a shot with my shotgun, but he does a cheeky little build and builds a wall in front of my bullets. I get a nice little shot there, and then he blocks another one of my shots, the second opponent. So I build down, and I hear them fighting each other, so I know I have a great opportunity to capitalize and take out both opponents. There I get a nice little flick shot, and then once again I establish the high ground, and right here I'm just listening for my opponent. You really want to track your opponents. When you have high ground, you always want to make sure that you know exactly where your opponent is. If you have high ground and you don't know where your opponent is, then you're not taking advantage of the high ground. Now this second clip here, this player was not a really good player. He didn't know what to do. I could have finished him off with a third burst there, but I missed. And he doesn't really build. He exposes himself way too much. He doesn't really peek or do anything to defend himself correctly, so I just took him out like nothing. Now we get a little third party here. We have a second opponent, and he has high ground, but he jumps down. So I know I have an opportunity to build up and dictate the fight. Once again, that's all this game is about, dictating the fight and counting your opponent effectively. So right now I'm just trying to track him, trying to find out exactly where he is. He takes a couple shots, and I move out of the way so that I can have the element of surprise. Now I see where he is. He builds up. I get a nice little shotgun shot there, but unfortunately it doesn't do a good amount of damage. Now here he jumps out and exposes himself crazy, and you never want to expose yourself like that where you're gonna take a lot of damage because you're gonna die. Now in this clip, my friend had called out a couple of opponents, so I used the impulse grenades to gain a lot of ground to just really try and rush and push the issue here. I'm going to be really aggressive, throw some clingers, try and open them up a little bit, destroy their cover, so I can just, get a good idea of where exactly all of my opponents are located, because there's multiple teams, and when you have multiple opponents, you really want to get as much intel as possible. Now here, this opponent really pushed me. He didn't really have a lot of protection, and he exposed himself way too much, and I was able to get a very easy kill. So after I take out that first opponent, I'm going on to take out the next team, and I'm just trying to see where exactly they are. I want them to peek first so I get a kind of good idea of where they are. I have the high ground right here, but they're going to shoot me down in just a moment, and I immediately reestablish that high ground so I can see where the opponents are. This guy exposes himself way too much, and the double barrel is way too strong for that. Here I block off my opponent and bait him to turn the corner, and that's just going to be a very easy kill. When you're up close and personal with the double barrel, you're going to get super easy kills. Now in this clip, I am trying to close the distance on my opponent, so I'm using the rocket launcher to kind of give me some time to just close the distance between my opponents. Here I peek around this tree to use the right side peek advantage, and then I slap him in the face with my double barrel. I got a little fortunate that he missed, and then once again I funnel him into that right side peek so I'm not super exposed, but I can see his whole entire body. You really want to take advantage of the right side peek where you're less exposed, but your enemy is going to be way more exposed, allowing you to get very effective and easy kills. Now I want you guys to really pay attention to this clip because I use a lot of walls to block off my opponent, and here I actually jump over a rocket, which was super sick. But then here I'm going to use more walls to defend myself. This player was very aggressive, so I knew I needed high ground, and he was going for the high ground as well. And then I get a little lucky here. I take a lot of damage because I did expose myself first, but luckily the double barrel shotgun is a very powerful weapon, and I was able to seal the deal right there. Now here I'm doing something that I usually don't do, which is push somebody with natural high ground, but I knew we were facing up against one opponent, and if I went from a different angle, he wouldn't really be expecting it. So I shot that first rocket to kind of weaken his defenses, and then I used this impulse here to close the distance really quickly, and I'm just trying to be super aggressive and get the kill as fast as possible. So I'm using high ground, he's shooting my materials, and I just have a really good opportunity to just clean up this guy. He was terrible. When you see an opponent shooting at your materials like that to try and shoot you down, go for the haymaker, man. That's really when you have a really good opportunity to do some serious damage. Now here in this situation, I went for a supply drop, and I really wasn't expecting anybody to shoot at me, but they did end up shooting some rockets at me, so I wasn't expecting it, and I'm just trying to build some cover around myself to assess the situation, gain intel, so I can plan an effective attack. So here I'm trying to get some leverage, get some high ground, and peek over so that I can just see where the enemies are, and once I locate them, I knew I can spam some rockets and try and do some damage. So I'm covering myself up. I don't want to be exposed. You never want to overexpose yourself. Building up, I got perfect high ground, a really good position here, and I'm just going to try and land some accurate rocket shots to get that first down. When you're facing a team with multiple opponents, you really want to get that first knock so you have a really big advantage over the opponent. Remember, this game is all about gaining the advantage. So I shoot a really well placed rocket there, and I'm going to get the knock, and as soon as I get that knock, I'm going to be really aggressive because I know this guy's probably going to panic, and he makes a stupid move. He overexposes himself, and he really did not see that coming at all, so he just got wiped up. Alright, so in this clip, this is endgame here, so I'm really just trying to seal the deal and play super effectively. Here this guy, he overexposes himself once again, and I just clap him. Real easy kill. Now the last opponent that I go up against here, he was actually a really good player, so we go into a nice little build fight, and he gains high ground, but I don't panic. I get a nice little shot, and I run away to try and get the element of surprise and avoid his bullets. Now I'm still building to just try and get the element of surprise and kind of juke him out. You really want to juke out your opponents and be unpredictable, so that's really what my goal here was in this fight. And like I said, this guy was a really good player, so it was a pretty even fight, and I'm actually telling my teammate over here to help me out because I kind of lost the advantage, and he gets a nice snipe at the end there to just seal that victory royale, and boy, it felt great to win this game. So if there are 3 things that I would really want you guys to just take from this video and just try and master and learn, is number 1, dictating the fight. You want to know what your opponent is going to do and counter them effectively. And number 2 would be never overexpose yourself. Anticipate what your opponent is going to do, bait them to make a bad move, and when they are way more exposed than you are, you take advantage of that and use that to get easy kills. You really want to master the art of peeking and using cover to your advantage because it's super important in this game. What I really want you guys to just focus and master is your mental capabilities. You know, always stay calm when you're in a fight. Even if you take a lot of damage, just try and gain the most intel that you can. Use your headphones to hear where your opponent is, and always just try and track your opponents. And, you know, just stay calm, composed, and remember, you know, what you're good at. Use your strengths to your advantage. So yeah, guys, that's gonna do it for my first educational commentary / tutorial. I'm pretty new to this, so feel free to give me any tips or advice that you guys would think would make my videos better, and also share your tips for Fortnite, the game itself. You know, I'm always trying to get better and improve upon my game, so feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd be more than happy to hear what you guys have to say. Peace!